For the community, by the community.
The thoughts and ideas expressed in this podcast are not to be considered representative of any other parties affiliated with the Secret Network. We are not qualified to give financial advice, but if we were, we'd say market by secret aggressively.
Welcome to the Secret Code Podcast. CeFi governance is now live. The Monero Bridge is imminent. It's a wonderful time to be actively involved in the Secret Network ecosystem. Some updates around our project: we have been in contact with the design committee, and member Cryptic Pixie made us an awesome new logo. And Julian of Secret Underground Node, which is written in all non-English characters, has made us an awesome intro transition which will be used in our upcoming YouTube release. We also published our first written article, Privacy-Preserving Blockchain Voting, so find us at Secret Code Podcast on Medium and at Secret Code Pod on Twitter. Today we get to talk with Assaf, one of the shadowy supercoders working at Enigma MPC and brilliantly creating all of the wonderful Dapps and upgrades that we use on the network today. We explore Enigma MPC from an employee perspective, the possibilities of eventually offering cross-chain single-side liquidity, Tendermint and Cosmos, and random number generators on blockchains. Assaf is even more kind and humble than he is brilliant, and I hope you guys enjoy this conversation as much as we liked having it. Your input becomes our output. This is the Secret Code.
Oh, I love it. I love the tech. I love everything about it.
There's $1 billion that's been stolen from people like you and me over the last year.
Their investment's very public.
Welcome into the Secret Code Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Weissen, and today joined by special guest, Assaf Morami. Assaf, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you. Hi, Eric. Hi, Paul.
All right, so to start us off, who are you? Describe yourself.
Yeah, so hi, I'm Assaf Morami. I live in Israel. I have an amazing wife and a cute little daughter. I'm currently a blockchain engineer at Enigma, We're building Secret Network, mostly, and before that I had 7 years of experience doing cyber security in the IDF, the Israeli military.
So you were actually a secret agent before becoming a secret agent?
Yeah, you can say that, yeah.
All right, that's awesome. And so right now you're actively a developer for the Enigma team.
Yeah.
Pretty much building everything on the Secret Network. We're really excited to have you on. A little bit more about you. What are some non-generic characteristics that you feel uniquely describe you?
So, honestly, I'm a very generic person. I like to watch Netflix, YouTube, and scroll on TikTok a lot. I try to swim at least 2-3 times a week. This week it was 2, last week it was 4, so it evens out. I like to take naps because I work from home. And I just love being with my wife and daughter. I don't know, what I want people to remember for me is that I was a nice person, I guess. Nothing more.
In my experience, getting to know you before this episode, you're very nice and humble. And we appreciate that about you.
Thank you.
So how did you first get involved in cryptocurrency?
Actually, it's a funny story. Back in 2017, summer, I think, my wife started to trade tokens for fun. I think mostly XRP. And I wasn't very into it until one day she came to me and said that she made like $200, which was impressive. Like, we didn't have any money back then. And she heard that it's kind of hard to turn it back into fiat. And if I'm willing to do it for her. And I said, okay, but I didn't know at the time what I'm getting into. So long story short, I got scammed. Someone sent me US dollars on PayPal and I sent them my Ethereum. And then that person disputed the PayPal payment, and PayPal said that I'm the seller and they don't protect selling digital goods. So they always rule in favor of the buyer. So I was basically screwed. So that was a bummer, but in the process of looking into Ethereum, I found out about smart contracts and how cool is programmable money. And then I decided to learn a bit of Solidity and try to implement a small lottery game, of course, because it's programmable money. So I remember that I needed to use random numbers for the lottery games, and it turned out not that trivial on Ethereum. That's why when I joined Enigma 2 years later, I immediately knew that secret contracts are going to be huge because developers get to use random numbers for free. And just to wrap up the Solidity story, I ended up ditching it because when it came time to build the UI, there was an annoying bug in Web3.js. And on the support channels, they blamed the node's implementation, and both Parity and Geth blamed Web3.js. So it just died down, and I moved on to other projects. But yeah, that was my first encounter with the blockchain.
That's a great story. It just goes to show that anyone can and will get scammed in this industry. And that's part of how early we are. I got the rug pulled on me when I first got into cryptocurrency, and I'm sure a lot of other people have similar experiences. And now that it's 2021 and it's a new wave of new users as the number goes up, as we have a bull run, a lot of people are getting involved first with projects like SafeMoon and Shiba Inu, which might not be scams, but they very much might be. There's always a learning curve. Sometimes it takes something like that to go down the rabbit hole. And now here you are, a developer for Enigma. So how did you first make that transition and get involved with Enigma?
So Itzik, which you might know as Cash Money, so Itzik and I served together in the same IDF unit for a few years. And in mid 2019, I was looking for a job after many years in the military doing cybersecurity. And Itzik was doing a few days of reserve duty. The company he was with at the time were sharing an office with Enigma, and he casually said that this crypto company Enigma are looking for devs and that he's giving my number to them, and I just went with it. And that's it. Like after doing an interview and talking with the guy, I was pretty much hooked.
So Itzik Kashmani was your friend that got you involved, and he wasn't even involved with Enigma yet?
Not yet. I think that on the day of Genesis, it was in February 2020, he saw what's going on in the office, like the excitement, and he decided to spin up a validator right there and then. Then he set up the famous Cash Money Explorer very quickly, and I think that was huge for Secret Network at the time because before that you had to use the command line for everything, and now it was super easy to observe the chain, and especially it made staking and voting on proposals very, very easy for users. And then I guess he became excited with what we were building and decided to join us. I really don't know where we were without him today. He gave us a big boost when he joined, and he played a big role in delivering the secret contracts and the Ethereum bridge as fast as we did.
That's hilarious. Paul and I have been involved here for 3-4 years, and I didn't know that Enigma had existed before Cash Money. I used his Explorer when I went through the process of switching my ENG tokens for a CRT, and he's actually the first validator I delegated to because I knew the name from the Explorer. Well, actually, it was him, and there was another one that was 50% commission, and I didn't really understand how commission worked, so I tried that and had to go through an undelegation process. But hey, there's a learning curve.
Yeah, we had a lack of documentation at the beginning. Like people didn't know anything, we either.
Honestly, I just needed a really good podcast to listen to that would explain some things. So Enigma, they called you up and they brought you in for an interview. What was that interview like? What was their sales pitch to you?
Like it wasn't a sales pitch, we just talked about encryption and hashing and blockchain. Like, I don't know, they didn't try to convince me, but we just talked about cool stuff and the people were nice.
So it was just technical, like what can we build, not how can we change the world?
I don't think, like, nothing like that.
Okay.
We just talked about cool tech and cryptography and hashing and like interesting stuff to me, at least.
I'm still waiting for my interview and they're still waiting for me to learn how to code. So So what are some of the challenges you've encountered in building blockchains? And what are some trade-offs you guys have had to make to get the secret network to be the blockchain it is today?
It's not trivial at all to write code for a blockchain. We got the networking, consensus, payment, staking, governance, and stuff like that practically for free from Cosmos and Tendermint. But then when we started to build the secret contracts module, a lot of our early testnets crashed because of consensus failure. Like you have to write 100% deterministic code because the tiniest out of place bit will crash the network. and you'll just see a consensus failure error on the command line. And if we're talking about trade-offs that we had to make, then looking at it like 10 months later, I'm really happy with how it turned out for us. We decided on mid-September 2020 as the secret contracts upgrade date. And in July, we stopped developing new features and just wrote tons of tests. And in the end, we didn't have time to implement a bunch of things that we wanted, like more queries and messages from contracts to the chain. And I think we got one bug report from Bedrick about that. And we also received feedback that a few queries are missing for implementing staking derivatives. Queries regarding bonded secret and bonded secret ratio and stuff like that. So this is missing, so it was kind of hard to implement in staking derivatives. I think that's why we didn't see it until now. But that's it. We hardly made any performance testing. And as you can see, contracts are executing pretty fast, meaning we don't see blocks being delayed because of slow contract execution, which is cool. We also wanted, but didn't implemented optional public outputs for contract, which could have made a much nicer UX on the front-end side of apps, and also would have saved a lot of unnecessary queries to nodes. If you remember, in the early days of the Ethereum bridge and SecretSwap, a lot of users reported networking errors and viewing keys errors and stuff like that. So all of that, I think, could have been avoided. But now that I'm looking at it, we got off pretty easy. We could have delayed the upgrade, but then we would have probably missed a lot of value coming from Ethereum in the last bull market. So I think it was a good decision to leave these things out. And we are going to implement them and put them in the next upgrade. So it's going to be fine at the end.
Funds weren't lost. Also, as far as trade-offs go, was there anything that had to do with memory or data size? We know that recently HumanNode decided to develop the project on a different platform because there were some incompatibilities between their needs and memory limits on Secret Network. And also, I know that Ian and the Secret Nodes team are working on Ellipsis protocol, which I believe would be able to handle more memory and harder computations. What are the current memory limits with Secret Network, and why were they chosen, and what were those trade-offs?
We just decided on, I think, 12 megabytes of memory per contract execution. Like, for comparison, I think in Ethereum, for a contract, it's like 32 kilobytes for a contract execution. And that's because in a blockchain, everything is a public resource, and you have to pay for it. You pay for it with gas and gas fees. And if you're running a very heavy computation, we can make it being able to pay a lot of gas for a transaction, but then blocks will be super slow. And I think most applications right now wouldn't want blocks taking one minute to being added to the chain. So we just decided on 12 megabytes. We could have made it a lot less or a lot more.
It's not exactly arbitrary. There's a trade-off between memory size and blockchain speed.
Yes, because memory inside SGX is kind of slow. Like, it's not slow like hard disk access, but it's more slow than regular memory. You have to allocate it and protect it and encrypt it. So yeah, if we were to give like 100 megabyte for a contract execution, it would take a lot of time to just allocate the memory and make sure it's protected, and then free this memory. So yeah, we tested it with 12 megabytes and we saw that it's running kind of smoothly, and we went for it.
Fair enough. With the new upgrade, is there going to be a substantial difference between SNP20 and SNP21 tokens?
SNP21 is backward compatible with SNP20. I think we just fixed something in the history queries.
Okay, so just minor bug fixes kind of thing?
Yeah, but it's backward compatible with SNP20.
Okay, cool.
It's not related to the upcoming upgrade.
Okay.
Like, there are already SNP21 and SNP22 tokens, I think, on chain right now.
So SNP21s and SNP22s have minor upgrades over SNP20s.
Yeah.
So now that we're making this Terra and Monero bridge and other bridges, will these new tokens, like Secret Terra and Secret XMR, will those be SNP22s then?
It would be, I think, Snip 22 or Snip 23. Like every minor fix we're putting there, it's like we're incrementing the version, but it's really tiny like improvements. Most users wouldn't know it. Like I think maybe contract developers might gain a bit of more of a UX for it, but it's not a big deal, I think.
Didn't they say something about timestamps as one of the improvements?
Yeah, thank you for reminding me. You can see your history on a token, for example, on Secret, but in Snip 20, we didn't record any timestamp. So you would just see, okay, I moved like 10 secret to my friend, but when, in what transaction, at what time. So it was kind of hard to do accounting. Like people wanted to see their history and when they made trades to report taxes and stuff like that. And they didn't know the exact date, so they couldn't derive USD price. So it was kind of hard. They had to guess and look at the chain and kind of guess from the public chain when they made the transaction and what was the USD value. So in Snip 21, I think that we added a timestamp to the transaction history. Like you can see your transaction history with a timestamp, and we also added, I think, a login. You will also see in the history minting and burning if you did with the token. I think for liquidity provider tokens, that's applicable. Stuff like that.
What's it like to be an Enigma developer?
I don't know, it's fun. Like I really love the team and the guy and John and Tor, and I really like this secret network and the community. Like I don't know, I love it. I love the tech. I love everything about it.
Good.
Maybe too cheesy of an answer.
All right, brother. You can hide. You can try to avoid it, but you can't run from it. It's time to try to query your smart contract.
Why?
It's the viewing key.
Okay, bring it on.
Let's look into the viewing key. The question isn't why do you have to make one on Secret Network? The question is why don't you everywhere else? So Assaf, we are very grateful that you are doing this interview with us in a language that is not your primary language, and there are plenty of other secret agents in the community that are getting involved in languages other than English. So, which non-English speaking country has the largest secret network Telegram community? A. Iran, B. Israel, C. China, or D. Korea?
Wow. So it's a guess. Like I never been in, like I never entered any of the regional groups. I don't know how to call it. I would guess Korea because I think I'm on the WeChat of the China group and there are like 300 people there. And in Iran and Israel, I don't think there are a lot of people, so maybe Korea. That's my guess.
That is a wonderful guess. I actually just got my friend involved on the Chinese WeChat, and I think she's enjoying it so far. I'll have to check back in with her, but that is incorrect. The correct answer is Iran. We have seen massive growth in the Iran community this past month, and we're up to 658 people pretty active there in their Telegram. So if you're listening, this stat comes from the International Growth Committee, and I will be posting a link to their monthly updates, which we should be expecting at one for July. That includes this growth pretty soon here, coming in August. So Iran has 658 people in their Telegram. They are the largest one. And Korea, actually, although we do have some agents, we haven't started up their own community Telegram. So that's a community that we need to help build and grow there.
Wow, that's cool. How was I supposed to know it?
You weren't supposed to know it, which makes it perfect.
But you gave Brandon a very easy question, I think.
I was hoping he wouldn't know it. It's analytics. Like, he's involved in everything. Everything's going to be easy for him. He probably had that stat on the back of his hand, too. You're just sitting there, like, surfing in Costa Rica while I was holding up. Oh yeah, there's 658 people on the year-round Telegram, dude.
Getting a notification for each one of them.
All right, back into our conversation. You mentioned on your Twitter how you could build potentially a Curve-like AMM. And Curve is a different project that had built an AMM that included single-side liquidity that had cross-chain capabilities. Could you describe what that would look like and how it could benefit SecretSwap?
Yes, so I love this idea of an AMM for stable pools, but I think we need to wait a bit longer for it, and I can explain. So SecretSwap right now is a first generation AMM, which means there's zero protection for liquidity providers against impermanent loss. So introducing pools without impermanent loss will protect liquidity providers, but then to make it worth for them to put liquidity in, we have to give them good yields. And what Curve are doing on Ethereum is awesome in two ways. They invest the liquidity in products like Compound and Aave, and then they can give liquidity providers good yields without the risk of impermanent loss. They also take a small portion of these yields and give it to traders for balancing the pools, which also increases volume. And that's why I said we need to wait a bit longer for projects like Sienna and that hopefully will be able to provide good yield, and then a Curve like AMM will be able to create a strong set of incentives for all participants. I think right now it will be really hard to give like incentives for people to put liquidity in, and that's an issue.
The idea of incentivizing it with yields, we could potentially have it be CeFi yielded, but there's already going to be a lot of things that are CeFi yielded. But as the price of CeFi went up, those yields would be higher. But it would also be a very set interest rate for something without any impermanent loss risk. So it probably wouldn't be that high, but better than a savings account.
But right now, the CeFi yields are from inflation, which hurts the CeFi price. So we can just print money and give it to people because they just dump CeFi and the price goes down and yields goes down with it. We need to get yields from somewhere that creates value.
It's nice that projects like are being built, so there will be other options. I hope that I have now started an arms race where all my guests are going to come in and try to say things that have to get bleeped out.
Let's talk about a bit more.
In the last episode, I redirected like 5 or 6 people on social media is like, oh, like you didn't like the bleep? Did you hear the hint at the end of the outro? Which if you haven't, you should probably go check. All right, so if we eventually do have this Curve-like AMM that offers single-side liquidity with cross-chain capabilities, to my understanding, that would mean that you could have pools of Ethereum ETH version and BSC ETH version, so people could swap back and forth where it's equal assets. Would that also work with things like Secret and CeFi? Because eventually we're going to have Secret on Ethereum, Binance Smart Chain, Polkadot, and who knows how many different platforms. Could we have all that?
So Secret is already on Ethereum. It's W Secret, I think. And when you go over the bridge, it turns into Secret. We have Secret on Binance, and we can bridge it as well.
So potentially this could actually be a faster and easier way to use the bridge without actually having to use the bridge?
It depends, yeah. If you're using the bridge, you usually want to move assets to other chain.
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, if we were to vote on it, use the community pool that's currently sitting there because you can't have it staked because you have to have the 21-day unbonding period. But if we could use a community pool to offer single-side liquidity in these different forms of Secret, depending on how it was rewarded, it could actually give rewards to the community with the Secret that's actively not doing anything while providing liquidity for the exchanges and helping those numbers and usability.
That's an interesting idea. Secret holders can vote on spending the entire community pool to a trusted wallet, and then have this wallet invest the Secret. Maybe stake it, maybe, I don't know, other investment products. So yeah, that's an interesting idea.
You mentioned earlier when we talked about what it was like building the blockchains and Secret Network that you were able to get a lot from Tendermint and Cosmos SDK. Can you explain in your own words what Tendermint and Cosmos are?
Yeah, so they are both amazing pieces of software engineering. In my opinion, Tendermint is what provides us networking, like the peer-to-peer communication and also consensus mechanism. And Cosmos SDK is built on top of Tendermint, and it provides us the core functions of a blockchain, like wallets, transactions, payments. And then on a higher level, Cosmos also provides us with staking, governance, IBC, etc. And what's really amazing about Cosmos is that it also provides a framework for developing custom modules and combining them with the rest of the pre-made modules that it comes with. So on Secret Network, for example, at Genesis, we only had the core modules, payments, staking, governance, etc. And then after a few months, we added the secret contract module, and it was super easy to break it all together. It's truly amazing that we got a blockchain functioning on a high level from day one, and we only needed to add the module that makes us unique. We never had to deal with networking or consensus or wallet cryptography, which are extremely hard problems, like extremely hard. And that's amazing to me that we got it for free.
I know that Cosmos is built on Tendermint, and I know that the Kepler team used to work for Tendermint. Are there platforms other than Cosmos that build on Tendermint? Because Cosmos built the CosmWasm contracts, right? So couldn't different contracts be deployed on Tendermint?
Yes, I've heard that organizations are using Tendermint without Cosmos, so you don't have transactions and payment and stuff like that. They just want the peer-to-peer networking and the consensus. So they have nodes all over the world that are doing computations, and they just want to get the consensus part. So it's not even a blockchain. Like you don't have blocks, you don't have transactions. You just have a bunch of different machines running computations and reaching consensus on the result.
Sounds like it could be really useful for advanced math.
Yeah.
There seems to be some difficulty with the UI or UX for viewing keys. I know I've seen a couple complaints in the telegrams.
Yeah.
Does it really come down to education for some of these dApps? Would there be a way to make one viewing key that would open all of them?
So you're just spot on. I don't think it's an education problem. It's definitely a UX problem that we created. We've got a lot of feedback from users trying to onboard the network about this, and we're working on a tool to help people set all of their viewing keys at once. I hope that it will be available for feedback in a few weeks and eventually integrated into the Bridge UI and into SecretSwap, which are mostly the places where you have to set up tons of viewing keys. I would say that, in my opinion, on Secret Network, there's no way around using viewing keys. You have to have them in order for users to be able to access their data offline. And offline meaning in a query and not inside a transaction. So we just have to make it as seamless as possible. And right now we're not there yet, but we're moving there.
Very cool. Thank you. So, one thing that's also really cool that I saw you mention on Twitter pretty recently is that using the secret network infrastructure, people can efficiently use random number generators. Could you walk me through what that process would entail and how you could guarantee quick and accurate actual randomness and numbers generated?
So it's not actual randomness, it's pseudo randomness because you have to have consensus. All the validators have to do the same computation and reach the same exact result. But yeah, so because secret contracts have private inputs and state, you can store entropy privately in contracts. With this entropy, contracts can generate random numbers on the fly. To bootstrap this entropy inside a contract, you have to get inputs from at least two parties, from which at least one is not colluding. So if you have 10 players, it's enough that only one of them is not colluding to generate a fair random number. And if all players are colluding, then what's the point of the contract? So I've listed a few examples on Twitter, and I think the most obvious one is gaming. Secret heroes are already doing this. They are generating new heroes and using random numbers to give them unpredictable powers. It's hard for me to even explain why this is huge for blockchain applications. On Ethereum, for example, you have to wait for all players to send their inputs before the contract can ask an oracle for a random number, and then you have to wait for a few blocks. But then when the contract gets the random number, you have to reveal it to everyone because on Ethereum, everything is public. On Secret Network, you don't even have to reveal the outcome of what happened with the random number. You can, for example, implement a Monopoly game and shuffle the chance card in the beginning and keep it private for the entirety of the game, revealing the cards one at a time.
Contrarily, if you were to build a Monopoly game on Ethereum, they would be able to tell the order of all the chance cards beforehand?
Yeah, like they will know what's the next card and what's the one after it.
So the same process they could use for minor extracted value or front running could be used to objectively gamify games,
Yeah.
where you could play poker and know somebody's hand before all the betting's done.
Yeah. So, for example, on Monopoly, you also have dice. So you have to roll dice, and everyone will just see what's the next move. And if I don't like it, I can just not play.
I wish there was a live sports betting going on Ethereum, but like you know what the play is going to be ahead of time.
Yeah.
Everyone's watching on a 30-second delay. I'm like, well, I bet he's about to catch this touchdown pass.
And one more example that I think is less shiny, but blockchain people will appreciate. You can have a secret contract that is a DAO and also a validator in the chain, or any other chain for that matter. So using random numbers, the contract generates a private validator key, and then with the public key, it registers as a validator in the chain. So the DAO can determine the validator's commission and other params, and the earnings are distributed to the shareholders. So that's pretty cool, like a validator for the people, by the people. Earnings are distributed to the shareholder. Of course, the contract can't execute blocks. It can only sign stuff, so it needs an operator to execute blocks, send the result to the contract for signing, and then broadcast the signature to the network. And the DAO can hire the operator to pay from the earnings of the DAO. It's kind of mind-bending, but I think it can be a nice contrast to the huge mining pools we are seeing on other networks.
Wow. Yeah, that's super cool. You'd be creating a DAO to operate a validator, so it would completely be community oriented and facilitated. That's a really neat idea. I had brought up DAOs on a previous episode and had several people reach out like, hey, like what is a DAO? So DAO is an acronym DAO for Decentralized Automated Organization. And it's pretty much a company that exists as a protocol. It's fully operational without necessarily having to have a company. And so the fact that this could be operated privately, I know as actually the day we're recording this, CeFi governance has gone live. And the idea of private governance for a DAO is fascinating, because what if there's pressure on you to vote both ways from both people and you're going to isolate yourself? I know Paul and I are planning on uploading. We should have our node active pretty soon. So there will be a secret code podcast node. And with that, we plan on bringing programmable transparency and being able to walk through our decision on things. But we could also be absolutely lying to everybody about what we vote and just vote no on everything and watch the world burn. Who knows? But we have that option, and that's pretty cool. So back in May, while there was fighting going on between Israel and Gaza, I had seen on Twitter that there was an incident with you and your daughter. And as a father myself, it really hit home and made me hug my daughters a bit tighter that night. Would you be comfortable walking us through what happened?
Wow, yeah, it was pretty crazy. Like, it was around 8 p.m. on just a random normal day. And my daughter, who was 7 months old at the time, she didn't sleep very well. She woke up a couple of times, which was pretty unusual. So I took her temperature and saw that she had a pretty high fever. Then we heard a siren, but not that loud. So I opened her bedroom window to make sure that, to find out what it was. And suddenly, when I opened the window, the siren became very loud, and we saw like 10 or 15 explosions in the sky above our heads. And then I got a call from my wife that she was just on her way back from work, and when it all started, and that she took shelter with this random nice family in a few miles from our home, and everything is okay. So yeah, it was just a crazy evening. My daughter screamed the loudest I've ever heard, probably from the loud noises and the fever combined. And luckily we have a safe room in our house, so we moved the baby's crib there, and she just slept there for 2 weeks until the fighting stopped, instead of in a room. And every night when we had to wake up for 2 or 3 times from the sirens to go to the safe room, she didn't even wake up. So at least we had like this small feeling that we were able to provide her some safety. But yeah, in that first night, I was just super sad that my daughter had to experience that, even though she won't remember any of it.
I'm sorry you guys had to go through that. Know that over here in America, me, my wife, my family, we're praying for your guys' safety and health. And it's nice she won't remember that, but it's tough having to go through that with kids. I remember trying to explain death to my daughter when she was 2. She won't remember it, but how do you word hard issues like this to children?
Yeah.
So the Enigma team is based in Israel, and so all that fighting and stuff can be really dangerous and really hit close to home. And this still is work. And I know a lot of people are like, oh, this is my investment or whatnot. There's more important things than money. There's family, and that's what always comes first. So stay safe, and I'm glad that you're an awesome dad, and your daughter's very lucky to have you.
Thank you.
Assaf, those are all the questions that we have for you today. Thank you very much. It's been extremely informative. We're honored to have you on the show and to walk us through a developer's perspective on everything being built by Enigma and developed in the Secret Network. If people are trying to maybe learn more about the development aspect of Secret Network and get involved or in touch more with Enigma, how could they best reach you?
So I'm everywhere all the time. I try to be as approachable as I can. On Telegram, Twitter, and Discord, I'm at Assafmo. My email is assaf@enigma.co with a double S. I'm also on the Secret Network forum. And funnily enough, people also reach out to me on Facebook, but not yet on Instagram or TikTok. But seriously, I think Telegram is the best channel to reach me.
I've been following your dance tutorials on TikTok. They're absolutely phenomenal.
Thank you.
Thank you for deciphering the secret code.
For the community, by the community.
New episodes every Sunday. Secret Sunday. Yeah, I get it. You're upset that I bleeped everything out last episode and this episode, and that you went back and checked the last outro and bam, still a bleep. Well, rest assured you get this news that we did not bleep out Ellipsis Protocol, and the fact that Ian, Nodefather himself, is working on building it. So if you want to learn more about it, stay tuned till next week when we have Ian on the show, explaining exactly what it is and what it can offer for Secret Network himself.